From the Talk Radio WRNR studios, it's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Thank you, Cliffy. Good morning. Welcome into the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave. In this first segment brought to you by L.A. Roberts Jewelers in historic downtown Martinsburg. You know, Dave, we've talked about this numerous times. The gift wrapping that they put on the boxes at L.A. Roberts Jewelers, it's good enough that if there wasn't anything in the box, it would still be a pretty cool gift.
Pretty cool.
There should be something in the box.
Okay, so let's play this out. I agree with you, but let's say you go get the box and you have it wrapped and you take it home for Colleen's birthday.
Yes.
And she opens it up and there's nothing but air in there.
Bad idea.
Okay? Bad idea.
Just a bad idea.
So you can only carry that thought so
Right.
far. By the way, can you flip that light on? You keep forgetting.
I know. I
need some
It's the only thing I have to remember all morning, and I always forget.
I need some illumination. By the way, I was watching TV news this morning, and I don't know about you, but I'm very comforted that Samantha Bee has come out and apologized for the awful things she said about the president's daughter. How about you?
She called her the C word.
Yeah, she said in her apology that she's on this show trying to reclaim the C word. I know. I'm just saying.
I didn't know it was unclaimed.
What does that mean? In her apology, I've been trying on this show to reclaim the C word.
It was a really bad apology.
I don't know about you, but I don't know. In the circles I run in, reclaiming the C word is not a very popular thing. That would be my analysis of that.
Yeah, it was a bad apology, and
man.
she sounded even worse this morning in the clips that they just played about that. You know, if you're going to dig yourself a ditch,
here we go,
and the ditch starts to fill up with water, the idea isn't to dig the ditch deeper so more water can fill up and just drown you further. It's You get out of the ditch and you get to higher ground. You don't keep digging deeper.
I have never watched her show. And to tell you the truth, I really hardly knew she even existed until all of this flap. So maybe she did it as a publicity stunt because she's increased her name ID.
Sure.
Right? That old saying, doesn't matter what you say about me, just spell my name right. If you're a publicity hound?
I don't doubt it for a second.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what's happened to, what's her name, Kathy Griffiths?
Oh, she's another piece of
She's gone.
poop.
I mean, she doesn't do anything now, really, except once in a while show up and say how her life was ruined by the Trumps.
She is now going on she's developed a new comedy routine, and she's going out on tour with her new routine.
Well,
and she was
got to earn a living.
Heard her say that someone asked her to compare the Samantha Bee situation with the Roseanne Barr situation, and she says that she's in the Samantha Bee camp. She'd rather be in the Samantha Bee camp any day than to be in the Roseanne Barr and all of those deplorables camp. So that's where she's coming from. I won't be buying tickets to go see her comedy routine. I don't know about you, but just not going.
Hey, yesterday we slightly introduced you to our new intern for this year, Siobhan Hunter, who used to, I would tell you, be one of the senior leaders of the Martinsburg Show Choir. And we had her on for a couple of different years when the show choir would come in and do things on air live, singing for us and doing performances and fundraising. And Siobhan is our social media coordinator for the rest of this summer. Siobhan, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning.
Hey, Siobhan, one of your responsibilities this morning, other than during my interruption when you're talking, is to come in and take a picture of Rob and Joe and I so we can put it on our Facebook.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't think there's a picture of Rob and Joe and I anywhere. And there actually should be one, I think. Don't you? Yeah, I'm just saying there should be. There should be a picture.
Well, there should be today because I'm wearing my Pittsburgh shirt.
From Eddie Brothers t-shirt, yeah.
So this is good timing.
I couldn't be more hungry than I am now, and I saw you with that t-shirt, and that's just the end of me.
I have an idea, by the way. We could have her sing the news one morning.
Siobhan didn't come in to be your personal valet.
Siobhan, you don't like that idea?
Not really.
Oh, okay. Well, you're such a lovely singer.
That is true.
Hey, how did I do on that emceeing that event a few months ago?
I didn't get to see. I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
Dave
All right.
was so counting on some backslapping there, Savon. Just next time Dave asks you how he did, just lie. He doesn't want the truth. He just wants positive reinforcement.
There are some mornings I come in here and I need to feel the love.
You do.
I do.
And you're not getting it because
I'm not-
Savon just was truthful instead of lying.
I'm not-
Savon, it's always better to lie with Dave.
And Sherry's not here this week,
She's
so
not.
I don't get the
And
love.
Crawford is not praising
No,
you.
he's not a love kind of guy. Matt Crawford producing our show this week because Sherry Dieter Davis is on vacation.
Savon, were your folks listening yesterday to hear your radio intern debut?
Yes, they were.
Very nice. We'd had you on more yesterday, but we had a packed show, so we didn't really get a chance to say good morning and properly introduce you and welcome you to the program here.
I understand.
You know, proud parents are an important thing. You heard me say the other day, the only reason I do this is so my mom can brag about her son having a talk show.
I understand
that's
too.
that's the motivation. And Matt Crawford agrees with me, by the way.
And
That's the reason he does it too.
Not sure if you caught this news yesterday, but we've been talking for months now about $32,000 couches and state Supreme Court misbehavior, the complete lack of any consciousness when it comes to the taxpayer dollars that are being spent in the judicial branch of our government here in the state of West Virginia, and a 32-count indictment came down yesterday on Justice Lawfrey, and we brought in our attorney here, Joe Ferretti, to tell us more about this, and this news broke yesterday. Joe, what's going on here?
Well, I guess your analogy about digging a hole or ditch and stopping at some point is going to be appropriate for our discussion about this situation with Justice Lawfrey, Chief Justice Lawfrey, who now is just a justice and maybe busted down even further in rank.
Buck private soon.
Yeah. The Office of Judicial Disciplinary Counsel filed formal charges yesterday with the West Virginia Supreme Court. And it's counts. It's set out in counts, just much like you would do with a legal complaint or a criminal complaint. Mm-hmm. And in that, it's a 32-page document, and it explains a lot about what's been going on with Justice Lawfrey in terms of not only the renovation issue, which is, frankly, in terms of this complaint, the tip of the iceberg, but there's some other charges that are being levied against the justice.
More serious charges.
Well, yes, it's serious in terms of the reputation of the courts, the role of the judiciary in our society. That's what disciplinary counsels are most concerned about. That's the overarching concern they have when they investigate individuals such as this. So it is complete with a lot of specifics, quotes, information that Justice Lawfrey provided, like the House Finance Committee, when he had to, in his role as Chief Justice, present issues regarding budget matters, and questioning came up from House Finance. Mm-hmm. I know you talked to Delegate Householder about that. He specifically had some questions of the justice regarding the public pressure that was coming in regarding the couch and other things. And this committee that investigated this determined that there was enough here to bring formal charges, and very interestingly and telling, I believe, filed a companion motion asking that the justice be immediately suspended from serving as a justice without pay.
This is really unprecedented, I would think.
Unprecedented at the Supreme Court level,
Correct.
Perhaps,
right.
In terms of West Virginia history. Now, this disciplinary counsels, both for lawyers and for judges, they investigate transgressions, and they have ever since they were constructed to do so when we developed ethics rules and rules of professional responsibility. They have in the past disciplined judges, and the discipline has the spectrum. It runs from a public censure or admonishment to annulment of your license to practice law. And in this particular case with Justice Lawfrey, all of those potential punishments are in play here.
How about criminal? Could he be indicted for criminal activity and subject then to a trial and potentially prison time?
Well, yeah, and that would be a whole different, you're in a different realm there. Now you're talking about either the county prosecutor in Kanawha County or the U.S. Attorney's Office if there's a federal offense, such as receiving benefits and not claiming on your tax return. Those would those matters and the criminal charges would be handled by those individuals or those offices.
That could potentially then bring Bill Powell's office into the situation.
Well, the Southern District.
Oh, this is not his district.
Yeah,
okay.
West Virginia is broken up into 2 districts in terms of the U.S.
Okay.
Attorney's Office,
Gotcha.
Northern and Southern. And this would be in the Southern District. But those are criminal charges. Those would be handled separately. What these disciplinary councils do is they enforce the rules of professional responsibility and the judicial code of ethics on judges and attorneys. And that's where he is facing his biggest problems right now.
To put this in perspective for our listeners, there's 3 branches of government. There's the executive, headed by the governor, there's the legislative, which has a speaker in the House and then a Senate president in the Senate. Then, of course, you have the judicial branch. Lawfrey is, if you will, the head of the judicial branch of government, really, in the state of West Virginia. Is that the right way to put that? I mean, as Chief
think,
Justice?
Well, he was formerly Chief Justice.
Right.
Now, that was stripped from him by the other justices.
But when he was committing these alleged
that's right.
things,
That's right. He was Chief Justice then.
he was the head legal guy in the state.
One of the complaints, one of the charges here was that a warrant was served by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District on the West Virginia Supreme Court. They're involved in investigating the court also. And
The entire court.
yes, and Justice Lawfrey at the time was Chief Justice, didn't tell the other justices that the Supreme Court had been served with this warrant. Now, these other justices, you can imagine, would be equally concerned about being subject to a subpoena from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Maybe they have challenges to it. Maybe they want to have their lawyers look at this and see, how do I respond as a justice to the court? Justice Lawfrey allegedly didn't tell the other justices that this had happened. And when they found out that had occurred, that he had kept that information from the other justices, they voted to strip him of the Chief Justice job. That's what happened back in February of this year.
And talk about irony here, Rob. This Chief Justice Lawfrey is the author, I guess it's a book, called Don't Buy Another Vote, I Won't Pay for a Landslide, The Sordid and Continuing History of Political Corruption in West Virginia.
Now he gets to be an addendum to the book when they put out the next volume of it. What's the worst of the charges, Joe?
Well, it's really hard to answer that question, because in my eyes, as an officer of the court, as a practicing lawyer in this state, I think these are all equally damning. Because to me, the overriding concern is the effect it has on the judiciary and the role of the judiciary and the confidence that we're supposed to have in the judiciary. So
You're right, Joe.
I'll answer you and say they're all equally damning.
You're right. I mean, if there's a branch of government in which citizens, I think, traditionally have confidence in, it's the courts. I mean, that's just the way we, as Americans, the courts are to be revered and respected, and this does a lot of damage to that. If you're, an average West Virginia, just looking at what's going on in Charleston around the state, this is not good news.
I can give you a rundown, Rob and Dave, of the charges, just in summation. First charge has to do with false statements.
That's another way of saying he lied.
Yes.
And Joe, in case someone's tuning in, are any of these actual criminal charges, or are they
Not yet.
process charges?
Not
basically?
yet. Right now, they are charges having to do with the Code of Judicial Conduct.
Okay.
That's it. Now, again,
And are these charges brought by a criminal body, or are they just simply within their own judicial investigations?
the judicial branch here in West Virginia has its own investigative bodies, agencies, and codes of conduct.
And they, in and of themselves, can't pass sentence and jail people.
They can't jail people, no. All they can do is affect your ability to either practice law or serve as a judge.
Gotcha.
That's it. And that's what's at stake right here, is his ability to continue on in his job. The charges, first is false statements, false swearing, and they cite quite extensively in this document the numerous interviews he gave to television stations. You remember Kenny Bass?
Oh, yeah.
Down at WCHS in Charleston. He had interviewed the justice twice. The first time, the justice laid it all on Steve Canterbury,
Right.
the court administrator. Kenny Bass gave him a second opportunity to come forward when more information come to light, and basically was telling the justice implicitly, here's your chance to clear the air and get things right. And the justice continued with the denials and Right, digging that hole.
And the water's pouring in.
So they cite that. They cite the fact that he then did an op-ed piece for a lot of statewide papers that had statewide circulation. Again, laying this all at the feet of Steve Canterbury.
Who was no longer employed in that position. So
Right.
blame the last guy out the door, right?
Justice Lawfrey fired him.
Mm-hmm.
So he blamed Steve Canterbury, and he said this is outrageous. He can't believe it happened. And he had nothing to do with buying couches or having inlaid floors put into his office and all that. Then, and this probably most damning in terms of not only what the Judicial Disciplinary Board is concerned about, but also what could be criminal in nature down the road, he took an oath when he appeared before the House Finance Committee and again continued to deny that he had anything to do with
is that a
buying these things for
potential perjury charge or obstruction of justice charge, or where would that fall under?
There's a statute in West Virginia. It is false swearing.
False
It
swearing.
And that was in testimony directly to Erich Householder,
And
the
the House
vice chairman of the House Finance
That's
Committee.
right. When they had their annual budget meeting. And false swearing is a misdemeanor in West Virginia, but it's not going to be taken lightly in this case because of his role as a judicial officer.
Mm-hmm.
So the first set of charges has to do with the false swearing. The second set of charges have to do with, and I already mentioned this, keeping secret from the Supreme Court the fact that a subpoena had been served on the Supreme Court by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District. And that's when they stripped him of the Chief Justice role. The third charges have to do with him taking state property and taking it to his home.
Vehicle.
No. Furniture.
Furniture. Oh, the desk.
Yeah, Cass
That's right.
Gilbert.
There was a couch and a desk, I
Yeah,
think.
that's right. The Joe Albright couch, former Justice Joe Albright had a nice leather couch that was in the Supreme Court offices for years. Joe Albright has passed on. The family didn't want it. Justice Lawfrey took it home and had it for years. And then when he was a law clerk, and just after he got elected but had not assumed the bench yet as a justice, because he was a law clerk for Justice Workman previously, he in his office was a Cass Gilbert desk. Now, Cass Gilbert is the architect, the designer of the state capitol building in Charleston. He's of some renown in terms of his architectural past and proficiency, and he had this beautiful wooden desk in that office, and Justice Lawfrey took it home and kept it in his home for 5 years. Then, when the proverbial poo hit the fan, Justice Lawfrey had state employees on state employee time go to his home after his wife called in and said, "It's all clear, the neighbors have left." He had employees go home, get that Cass Gilbert desk out of his home using a state truck and took it to the state furniture surplus building furtively, as was alleged here, which means, undercover, and tried to get away with it. He was caught, however, doing the same thing with the Joe Albright leather couch. Same deal. Word came that he had furniture in his home. It was this beautiful
He was
leather
doing
couch.
this, just to be clear, after it had become public
Yes.
that it was at least speculated
Right.
that he had it in his home.
So again, he has state workers go to his house, get this couch, load it up in a state truck, and take it out. But this time, he didn't get the all clear from his wife that the neighbors weren't there. And the neighbors took photographs of this happening, because this was all the rage in Charleston already. This was in the newspaper.
If you can't count on your wife to make sure the neighborhood is clear, there's something wrong. They need to really go to counseling or something.
So that's the next set of charges, okay? And then he used the Supreme Court has a public information officer who is the publicist for the Supreme Court. So when the Supreme Court justices want to make a pronouncement, they want to hey, we made a momentous decision, let's get it out there. There's a guy who does that. And he had this individual go out and make public statements that when it was discovered that these actions with this furniture was taking place, he had that fellow go out and say, you know what, it's the practice of the West Virginia Supreme Court to furnish Supreme Court justices with home offices. That includes computers and furniture and everything else. Nothing to see here, folks. So Judicial counsel.
Is it the practice?
No.
Okay.
Judicial disciplinary counsel interviewed all the other justices, looked back through records, and established very clearly that the only practice that ever existed at the West Virginia Supreme Court was to give each justice a home computer on which to do legal research and what have you.
That's understandable.
Yes, but not furniture, not to furnish a whole home office. So Justice
So he
Law,
told his press secretary to go lie.
basically, yes. And then the next charge was that not only did he have a computer furnished by the Supreme Court appropriately, based upon the practice of the Supreme Court in the past, he had additional computers purchased and brought home for use by his wife and son. And he had the technician from the West Virginia Supreme Court go home and service those computers. Okay, if the hard drive crashed or if there was some kind of bug or something that needed to be taken out of the computer.
At taxpayers' expense.
So they're really shoveling now. This hole is getting very deep.
And when they looked at these computers, on the computers was not legal research or briefs or anything for the
Please
justice.
don't tell me.
Don't tell me. I don't.
Please don't
I
tell
don't
me.
want to know. Okay,
no
thank God.
allegations of that,
Thank
but just
God.
computer games, photos that the family had wanted to store it on computer. It was still personal use.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But I mean, you can understand that because he has to spend a lot of family time researching in his office because the demands of the Chief Justice go on, and so his family did need some entertainment while the father and the husband was deposed. You think?
well,
No.
on your dime.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is it
No, it doesn't cut it. Does
possible he's just the guy that got caught and not the first one to do this?
Oh, I don't know that, but I do know there are rumors that another justice is being caught up in this to some extent, but maybe handling it differently. Maybe more, maybe he's a little bit more honest or direct about what he did or did not do. So we'll see how that goes.
How many of those charges did you get through, by the way?
I just have 2 more to go.
Tell you what, hang out another segment. Joe Yates is coming in next. We'll get to Joe in a second. We want to continue with what we're doing here to finish out this subject here. Do you have time to stay?
Sure.
8:31.
On my brow, and there's nothing I can do about it now. I've got a
CBS News Update. President Trump is wishing Alice Johnson a wonderful life. He's tweeted a day after commuting her life sentence for drug trafficking. The 63-year-old great-grandmother walked out of prison in Alabama after serving more than 20 years.
I'm free to hug my family. Yes. I'm free to live life. I'm free to start over.
Johnson tells CBS This Morning,
I turned my life all the way around in prison and decided that I am not going to just do time or let time do me. I'm going to make the most of this opportunity, and I'm going to be of service to others.
the president acted after a request by reality TV star Kim Kardashian. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker says most people serving time for drug offenses don't have high-profile advocates.
There's lots of injustices to be undone, and it shouldn't take celebrity to accomplish that.
Kardashian's husband, rapper Kanye West, a vocal supporter of President Trump's. CBS News Update. I'm Deborah.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. A Hedgesville man shot a 12-year-old boy who was on his property running away from his house. Police arrested 35-year-old Benjamin Alamong at his home Tuesday night. He was charged with malicious wounding and posted a $15,000 bond. The boy was hit with birdshot in the head, near one of his lungs, and his legs and feet. The Herald Mail reports he was well enough to tell police he'd been sleepwalking and only remembers running away and being shot. Alamong told police he was trying to protect his family and his property by firing those several shots. Police say she was high when she burst into the house and, according to a person who lived there, punched a woman in the face, threatened her children, and attacked that woman's husband. He managed to fend off and subdue Tina Weiss until police got there, at which point Weiss allegedly hit one officer in the head. They restrained her, took her away, and charged her with burglary, battery, and obstruction. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We're looking for warmer temperatures this afternoon with lots of sunshine and highs closer to our average. Looking at readings of around 78 to maybe 80 on a light southerly breeze by afternoon. And overnight with fair skies, scattered clouds, the early morning low close to 60. Tomorrow, sunshine early with a mix of clouds and clear, but we will see the increasing chance of a late-day shower and thunder shower, still pretty widely scattered, not very likely, and our forecast high near 84 degrees as it gets kind of muggy. Saturday, Sunday, more numerous showers and thunder showers. Forecast highs upper 70s by Sunday afternoon. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
Hey fans, it's Johnny Castle from your Hagerstown Suns. It's another season of minor league baseball in the Hub City, highlighted by Antietam Brewery Tuesdays, Bark in the Park Wednesdays, the ever-popular Thirsty Thursdays, fireworks and giveaways on select Fridays and Saturdays, and of course Sunday Fun Days, where kids 12 and under can run the bases following the games. It's 70 games of fun and excitement with the Washington Nationals Class A affiliate. For tickets or more information, head to HagerstownSuns.com. The Hagerstown Suns, big league baseball in your backyard.
Smith-Nadenbush is an independent insurance agency. You see, there's an important difference between Smith-Nadenbush and agents who work just for one company. Working for one company, they can only sell the products of that company. On the other hand, Smith-Nadenbush can design a program just for you, your family, or your business, and at the right cost. Smith-Nadenbush, Martinsburg, Charlestown, and Berkeley Springs.
Welcome back to the program. Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by Bechtel Jewelers, West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer, Route 11 South Inwood, next to Viva Mexico. Our producer this week is Matt Crawford, in for the vacationing Sherry Dieter Davis. And our intern is Savon Hunter. And our telephone numbers are 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586. We're talking with attorney Joe Ferretti about the recent investigation by the JIC, I suppose it is, Judicial Investigation Committee, which brought forth 32 counts in a complaint about former Chief Justice Alan Loffrey, much of it having to do with, at a minimum, very unethical behavior and possibly, would you say, even criminal behavior in regards to some of the counts, Joe?
Possibly. The complaint does reference a criminal statute, the false swearing statute, when he takes an oath and appears in front of the House committee and allegedly lies there. That could implicate criminal charges. There's rumors about the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District being involved in some sort of investigation. We know there was a subpoena served at one point, which is a subject of one of the charges. So who knows where this can go? There could be tax implications to the extent that he has received some benefits or used some public property, such as the next charge I was going to get to, which is the use of the Supreme Court motor vehicles for private use.
He might not be the only one involved in this.
Now, do they get a car, a personal vehicle to use on the Supreme Court?
Apparently, from what I can glean from this these charges, there are 3 vehicles, and they're not 2018 Cadillacs. Okay,
right.
There's a 2007 Buick, there's a 2009 some other kind of car, but they're nice sedans, probably with low mileage, but they're kept for use by the Supreme Court justices when they're on official business. So if they're going to go, say, conduct a hearing in Morgantown, which they've done at the law school, they can use that car to transport themselves and perhaps other justices up to Morgantown.
Or the president can send his jet down, one of the two. No, it's
a whole nother matter. But here, the allegations are that the justice, over a span of about 3.5 years, used the Supreme Court justice car for personal use on 212 days. So over 3.5 years, that's about 10-15% of the time in that 3.5 years, he's using a state car for personal use. And
knowing that the rules are to use those cars only when they're on official business, it's apparent then that it would seem to me that he's actually using that as a personal transportation to and from work, I would think.
Well, they had a sign-out system in the Supreme Court. If you took a car out, you signed it out, and you put down the date you took the car and your destination. And he got into the habit of not putting down the destinations, which the allegations are they were to Tucker County, where he and his family live.
I understand there were some other charges, not necessarily just him, could have been some of the other justices also about lying about mileage.
Yeah, that's right. When they were on official business, maybe going to a seminar or maybe to speak at some convention, and representing the West Virginia Supreme Court, they would get rental cars there, and what I've heard the allegations are that they would then take these rental cars and rather just commute back and forth between a hotel and the convention center, they would go off on personal jaunts for an extra day or two and go visit Niagara Falls or some other place with a lot of mileage. And so when the mileage information was provided to the comptroller or whoever's in charge of handling the budget of the Supreme Court, they would notice a lot more mileage than should have been on the car. So there's allegations there that there's personal use with some of the rental cars too.
Were there any other charges?
Well, other than the vehicles, Rob, they gave an overall charge of basically public lying for private gain, which implicates a lot of the judicial canons and the rules of professional responsibility. You can't have the public trust of a public office and then try to use that for private gain. And then perhaps, and this is kind of a throwaway at the end of the complaint, but there's a section called aggravating circumstances. And this might be compelling them to seek immediate suspension without pay, which is a pretty drastic step when you're investigating a judicial officer. But, and Dave will like this because he referenced this earlier on. Justice Lawfrey is an author, and it has to do with graft and corruption in West Virginia. And they cite passages from his book in this complaint. And they basically say that as a judicial officer, he knows better. Mm-hmm. He's written about this, and they cite a couple of these passages. And then they, on page 483 of his book, respondent Justice Lawfrey said, "It is equally important for police officers, prosecutors, magistrates, judges, and justices who violate the law to receive tougher penalties for their corrupt actions." So he has potentially hung himself with his own
Where
rope.
did he go wrong from writing something like that to where he is now?
Well,
it just seems so darn flagrant to me.
Brazenly arrogant.
Yes.
And the irony of this, fellas, is that some of the use of the Supreme Court vehicles for personal use, it began on some occasions when he was going to a book signing event at the Greenbrier and at other places. And he would use the Supreme Court car to do the book signing. He would to travel there and conduct his book signing, and then he'd come back to the Supreme Court of Charleston in the Supreme Court car, and then, of course, go elsewhere, too. So there's an irony here also, a cruel irony from his perspective.
Let me tell you what I would advise him to do, and I would advise him to do it today. I would say he needs to go on television. He needs to talk to the people of West Virginia. He needs to look right into the camera and say, "I'm sorry. I did a bad thing. I'm resigning," and to apologize to the people of West Virginia. I mean, that's what he really. And I'm just saying, if he hopes to salvage, and I know he gets his day in court and all of that, but he really needs to come forward, I would think, to the people of West Virginia and put us first for once here and just say, "I apologize. I'm sorry. I did a bad thing, and I'm going to resign my position."
Well, David, I agree with what you're saying. I think he owes that to us as a public official. But also, I'll say this. First of all, my opinion is that had he done something similar to that when this news first broke, I don't think he is in as deep water as he is
Totally
right
agree.
now.
I totally agree with that.
I think he might even survive that.
Yeah, we would have judged him less harshly.
Sure. He could have just said, "Hey, I had a couple of weak moments, and I took furniture, and I spent too much money, and you know what? I'm going to pay the state back what I can. I'm going to make this right." I think he survives. But he has dug a hole by his consistent lying and his consistent involvement and blaming of others that I think it might be over the edge here.
And the next question now, are there other justices that might fall to the same fate? I mean, I'm not saying there is, because I don't know, but was he the Lone Ranger on the Supreme Court violating all of these rules and regulations?
I don't know the answer to that. And
no one does.
I don't want to comment yet.
But it's speculative.
But I'll say this, because I'm sure some listeners...
But that's how he's tainted the whole court, though, I think.
Sure. I'm sure some listeners are wondering, boy, here's Ferretti, he practices law, and he's he's laying it out against this Chief Justice, or former Chief Justice, still Justice of the Supreme Court. Here's why I feel confident in doing that, because he had an opportunity procedurally to respond to these charges in writing. The procedures are, charges are brought, you get notice of them, you receive this document, and you have 30 days to respond. He hired personal counsel, some attorney in Charleston. He asked for additional time on 3 occasions to fashion a response to this, and then never filed a response. And that tells me he's incapable of doing so, because there's truth in these charges.
And he has 30 days to respond to these 32 counts as well, does he not?
Yes. But he never responded to the Judicial Disciplinary Council, which is his right under the procedural rules. That tells me he's got a problem in responding. And I could tell you, any attorney, thank God it's never been me, but attorneys who are subject to those kind of disciplinary actions, the first thing you do is file a response. You want your story out there so that the disciplinary council knows, hey, I've got a defense to this, and you've got to consider these aspects of what's been alleged against me. He never did that.
Good stuff, Joe.
Joe, prediction, what comes of this, ultimately?
Prediction would be a resignation, and if that doesn't happen, if he hangs in there, I wouldn't be surprised if there's impeachment proceedings. We know that was started one time just by motion on the House floor. Didn't go anywhere. When you're looking at this, I don't see how, if he doesn't resign, the House doesn't consider that.
8:45. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody say yeah.
The Honda 4th of July sales event has brilliant deals on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country, from the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, and even back up to Niagara Falls. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event, now at your Honda dealer.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 brand image awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com.
Hi, honey.
Where are you?
I've been in line at the post office for the last 30 minutes.
Why are you at the post office? It'll take you all day.
Where else do I go to ship my packages or drop FedEx off at?
Honey, going postal is way faster, has less lines, and friendly service.
Where's going postal?
It's right in the Common Shopping Center in Martinsburg. They'll ship your packages quickly, and you can avoid the lines.
Going postal should be your first choice for all your shipping needs. Going postal, the Commons, Martinsburg. Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by Miller Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty, and more evidence of corruption at the state Supreme Court level in that last segment with attorney Joe Ferretti. And it's got to be strong stuff because, you know, Dave, we've had a lot of trouble getting attorneys to give us a sincerely critical comment about the state Supreme Court's behavior on these things in the past. And Joe's really the first attorney to break out and explain these things and give a strong opinion.
Yeah, if you're an attorney, you don't want to speak out against the Supreme Court because next Tuesday you might have a case in front of them, you know, so they're somewhat reluctant to do that. So, yeah, it makes sense.
In studio with us right now is Joe Yates and his son Alex. Joe, good morning. Thanks for coming in, bud.
Good morning. Nice to see you again.
How you been?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, you've been cranking out the performances on stage.
Been working hard. Working hard.
How many do you do a year?
We do one big show at St. Agnes a year, and we generally do maybe one or two other things too. And then I do other stuff on the side.
Okay. It seems like
and then
you
he
at least a
forces
couple a
his
year.
children to be in it. So
I do,
it's kind of parental abuse in a way, I guess.
Pretty
isn't
much.
it? it's a requirement of being in the Yates family. And since there's only one left at home now,
Everything falls on him now. That's true. That's very true. But he's spoiled rotten, as all young
is he?
children are.
Okay.
Children are.
All
so.
right.
Alex, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome, man. Well, how old are you these days?
I'm what?
How old are you?
I'm 17.
There we go.
17. He'll look at you for affirmation on that one, man. That I won't
Gave
look.
me a weird look.
as a 17-year-old actor, though, I look at you and I think you could go younger if you wanted to on stage. You could go. How young do you think you could go on stage and get away with it?
Until he opens his mouth, anyway.
Until he opens his mouth, I guess.
I
Yeah,
don't know,
'cause he's-
15.
Yeah. Okay.
A Face in the Crowd is the name of the production, and where are you doing it, Joe?
This will be at Reynolds Hall, which is on King Street, right at the intersection of King and German Street in downtown Shepherdstown. It's our fourth show for musicals at St. Agnes. And this is a unique production because it's sort of written by me, but it's also, we've taken the music of the Kinks from two records that they produced in the mid-'70s from their theatrical period. First record was Schoolboys in Disgrace, and the second one was called A Soap Opera. And those two records are basically mini shows in and of themselves. And what I've done is I've taken those two, put them together, made a first act and a second act, and written the dialogue in between the songs to make it actually a theatrical production.
So this is kind of like your version of Pink Floyd's The Wall.
It is exactly that, yes.
Nice.
It
Did you
is.
see that movie,
It
by
is.
the way?
Absolutely.
That's pretty
yeah.
awesome, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
The Kinks,
yeah.
an iconic
Yeah.
British invasion band
Absolutely,
in the 60s.
yeah.
man.
I grew up listening to these records, and
Sure.
you know, and the idea came to me last year when we were doing West Side Story, and Alex was actually one of the reasons why it came to me, because he was in a rock band, and they started to get pretty good. So I said to them, I was like, we could do a musical with you guys.
A rock musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, sure, they're just starting out, so they were excited to.
So all of a sudden, Dad was cool then, for once, right?
I wouldn't go that
For
far.
once, maybe.
I wouldn't go that far.
A little bit.
A little bit cool.
Yeah.
Once you knock this out, then I expect Tommy will be next.
Tommy will be next, yes.
Right.
But, we also have to keep it a little clean because it's for the church. So.
Well, you got to clean it up.
Okay, so the plays that you do are, in theory, for the church, and I get that, and I've
Yes.
gone to several of them, and I'm thinking about West Side Story last year. The production of West Side Story, and I want our listeners to know this isn't just a church play. This isn't just a bunch of. This is high production value, great acting, great music, great singing, from beginning to end. West Side Story was thrilling, and Alex, your part in. I mean, I'm thinking about the fight scene, which was so good, but other scenes as well, and your brother Richard, who was unbelievable in that. But this is high production quality acting on stage. I just want people to know that this is not just a church play.
I appreciate that because we do put a lot into it. And we do it for the church, but Father Matt gives us complete control. There's no message or anything like that. We're not trying to get people to go to our church. It's just basically a venue for us, and we can, do any shows that we want to. He gives us complete control over everything. So you're right. It is just theater.
Yeah, and priests don't usually give total control to anybody else.
It's pretty unusual.
So
It's pretty unusual.
That's a cool thing. As well.
You're doing 6 shows over 2 weekends?
Yes, we're doing the 15th, 16th, and 17th. That's next weekend. And the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, that's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we have one matinee, and that is on the 17th. That's Father's Day. So you should bring your fathers to see that because they'll remember the Kinks.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Alex, tell us about your role in the play. Are you the lead guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, God help us. I'm Jack. He's the little guy who, in the first act, he's a teenager. He's in high school. That's from the first album, Schoolboys in Disgrace. And then in the second act, he becomes he's in a band, and then it gets big for whatever reason, and then he has a midlife crisis, basically.
He decides that he wants the normal life as opposed to being a rock star. So he decides that he's going to pick the first house that he comes to. He's going to turn that person into the rock star, and they're going to switch places. So that's what he does. Unfortunately, what he doesn't realize is the first house that he comes to is the home of the girl that he was in love with in high school. So it's a little awkward. But the guy who is married to his high school crush says, heck yeah, I want to do it. I want to be a rock star. So they switch places.
And why is the play called A Face in the Crowd? What's behind that?
Well,
that's the name of the original play that you have rewritten, or was that your name?
No, it's a name of one of the songs in the show.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And the reason that we chose that is because it's kind of the theme of the overall production.
You mean picking someone out and making them a rock star?
Well, that and part of the theme is are we all just a face in the crowd, or do we stand out? What does it mean to be a rock star? Is it important? That sort of thing. Or and in the workforce, or is everybody just a face in the office at the desk, that sort of thing?
Is the music that's played, the Kinks music that's played, does it resemble the original version of the Kinks songs, or have you?
Pretty closely,
okay.
Yes. Yeah, we have stayed true to that. That's really hard to get them to do because they're a little bit more hard edged than the Kinks were.
So it's a modernized version.
It is, yeah, it is, and
is it sort of like Kinks music with a punk?
A little bit,
little bit genre to
with
it?
a little bit harder edge. I don't know how you'd describe that, but it's a little louder.
now is the music how dominant is the music during the performance? Is it central to the play itself?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we don't do it in
and it's not recorded. It's live. The band's actually playing.
Everything you hear is completely live. Yeah.
So that's got to be thrilling then for you, Alex. I would imagine that you get basically a 2-hour concert with your band, right, in front of a nice crowd.
Yeah, it's
Let's
fun.
move up to the microphone a little bit there.
Yeah, it's fun.
And it is actually more of a concert than a typical play. All the instruments are right there on stage. And when the dialogue changes and the song begins, the actors basically turn around, pick up their instruments, and start playing. So it looks and feels like a concert with dialogue between the songs. So it's not a tradition. It's kind of a unique piece of theater.
It sounds to me like if you go to this play, you're going to have a good time. It's not going. You're not going to be. It's a serious message, obviously, and it has a theme to it. Sounds to me like you're just going to have a good time if you.
You're absolutely going to have a good time, especially if you like to make fun of Alex, because that's his character's name is Jack, and one of the songs in the first act is called "Jack the Idiot Dunce." And we do that twice.
That's harsh.
For effect.
That's harsh.
Funny, a dad who writes a musical puts his son in the role of Jack the Idiot Dunce. I'm just wondering if there's anything there.
I'm thinking of in their household. Hey, get up, you idiot dunce.
Something like that. Yeah.
Just from not mowing the lawn enough.
That's got to be it.
Yeah. You have to keep these kids in line.
One way or the other.
You really do.
Yeah.
You put them on stage and you embarrass them in front of a few hundred people.
And let it go.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing pieces of like La La Land meets Rockstar with the way you're describing this in some ways. So I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I'm kind of envisioning that with someone who is no longer being replaced by somebody else, and the girlfriend is now dating somebody else.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting the way that ties together.
Yeah, and it was really cool for me the way the music really fit together. The two records fit together beautifully, even though they were produced at different times, and it wasn't their intent. The Kinks actually tried to mount a Broadway production in England with soap opera, but they didn't. It never panned out. And the interesting thing for me is putting the two together. Yeah. Having the initial part of the kid's life in high school, and then just flowing that right into regular life. And we used one song from a third Kinks album, which is called Sleepwalker, which the song is Life on the Road, right?
Mm-hmm. I saw the Kinks at Meriwether Post Pavilion back in the early 90s. At the time, they were no longer carrying the weight of a headlining band. So the crowd was very sparse. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is the Kinks. And there's, at Meriwether Post, there's maybe 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'm, Ray Davies, I'm probably coming out being ticked off that I'm out here and there's nobody here to see it. We're the Kinks. We're part of the British invasion, man. Where are you people? And it didn't matter to them. They played like there were 15,000 people there. They gave everything they had, did a great show.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a concert from them earlier than that. I think it was in the 80s. And it was at a small venue, and the power went out. And they basically, they were waiting for the power to come back on. And Ray Davies came out and sat on the lip of the stage with his acoustic guitar and was just playing songs and singing with the crowd. And
Total professional.
Was awesome. It was awesome.
Entertain the crowd. That's what they do, whether it's one person or 10,000 or 20,000 people.
Now, Alex isn't the only musician in the family. How's Richard doing after his first year at WVU?
He is actually on his way back there today because they have a band camp. He is in the snare line for the West Virginia Marching Band.
That's a big honor.
Pretty excited about that. Yeah. He said, I told him you're going to go from performing in front of a couple hundred people to 65,000 people. So not a bad step up.
Yeah. Pretty nice.
Joe, how much are the tickets to get in to see this play the next 2 weekends?
We're actually not charging admission for this play. We want as many people to come as want to and bring your whole family. It's family fun entertainment. You can make a donation if you wish to, and those donations will be tax deductible. But since it's an original piece and a new kind of concept, we decided this year that we would just throw it open and let everybody come.
Very nice.
At all.
And again, you will be performing it where?
At Reynolds Hall, 109 East King Street, I believe is the address. And that is on the June 15th, 16th, and 17th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
In Shepherdstown.
Yeah, Reynolds Hall is right across from the town hall. So that's how you can find it. And it's the big building with the clock on it in downtown Shepherdstown.
Thanks, guys.
Can't miss it. Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Always nice to have you.
Good to see you.
9 o'clock, our news break is next. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Zoom Video Conferencing.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Newfound freedom for a Tennessee woman who'd served more than 20 years for drug trafficking. President Trump commuted her sentence after a request from reality TV star Kim Kardashian. CBS's Adriana Diaz is in Memphis.
Alice Johnson waited 21 years to embrace her family as a free woman.
I'm feeling no handcuffs, nothing on me. I'm free to hug my family. Yes. I'm free to live life.
The 63-year-old great-grandmother was serving a life sentence without parole for her role in a Memphis-based cocaine trafficking ring.
I've been resurrected from the dead, literally.
Johnson was convicted in 1996 of 8 criminal charges, including drug conspiracy and money laundering.
The U.S. reaches a deal with a Chinese telecommunications giant. Live to CBS's Peter King.
Deborah, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross has just said the Trump administration has agreed to lift the ban on American companies selling parts to ZTE. The company has to change its board of directors and management. It has to pay $1 billion fine and put $400 million in escrow. Remember, the U.S. imposed a 7-year ban after the company was caught illegally shipping goods to North Korea and Iran, essentially putting it out of business. This would put it back in the game. Deborah?
The Trump administration is expected to appeal a federal judge's ruling, preventing it from withholding federal grant money to Philadelphia because it's a sanctuary city. Mayor Jim Kenney.
It is a ruling that prevents a White House run by a bully from bullying Philadelphia into changing its policies.
Samantha Bee apologizing to Ivanka Trump for calling her the C word over her father's immigration policy that separates children from their parents.
I would do anything to help those kids. I hate that this distracted from them, so to them, I am also sorry.
Bee on TBS. A restaurant manager in South Carolina admits to treating an employee like his personal property.
Bobby Edwards, a white man, has pleaded guilty to abusing and enslaving a mentally challenged black employee. Prosecutors say Edwards admitted using violence, threats, isolation, and intimidation to force John Christopher Smith to work more than 100 hours a week without pay at a J&J cafeteria near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Court documents describe beatings with a belt, choking, slapping, punching, and burning with tongs used in hot grease. Edwards faces up to 20 years in prison. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
2 more aides to EPA Chief Scott Pruitt resign. Millen Hupp and Sarah Greenwald both got hefty pay raises without White House approval. Top dog at last night's CMT Awards. Lake Shelton for I'll Name the Dogs. S&P futures up 2. This is CBS News.
Zoom video conferencing, featuring video and audio clarity with screen sharing. Free accounts are available at zoom.us. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Here's a special message for those of you who owe the IRS at least $10,000 or more in back taxes. The IRS has special programs in place that could eliminate or reduce your tax debt by thousands of dollars. With a call to National Tax Helpline, you can stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. Once you've qualified and enrolled, the IRS will stop all the collection activities against you. These unique programs have been allocated to help the economy and significantly reduce or eliminate your tax burden. The IRS is currently accepting reduced settlements and other favorable programs. You may qualify for substantial savings, so get the help you need. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, call now for free information and to see if you qualify. Take down the number now for the Tax Helpline, 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055 for free information. 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. He admitted to using his mother's backyard to grow pot. Lots of pot. And he'll be spending the next 5 years on probation. The Journal reports 50-year-old Daniel Thompson of Millville had more than 600 marijuana plants on the Martinsburg property last year. 2 schools in Berkeley County will be getting new principals. Catherine Worthington is coming to Marlowe Elementary, replacing Amanda Stevens, and Antoinette Funk will be at Pikeside Pre-K. Worthington's been assistant principal at Potomac Intermediate for the past 5 years, and Funk's been the assistant principal at Mill Creek Intermediate. Funk will also become assistant director of the county's pre-K program. 35-year-old Richard Valentine of Martinsburg facing up to 20 years in prison and $1 million fine after pleading guilty to 1 count of aiding and abetting possession with intent to distribute heroin. U.S. Attorney Bill Powell says Valentine admitted to doing so in September of last year in Berkeley County. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We're looking for warmer temperatures this afternoon with lots of sunshine and highs closer to our average. Looking at readings of around 78 to maybe 80 on a light southerly breeze by afternoon. And overnight with fair skies, scattered clouds, the early morning low close to 60. Tomorrow, sunshine early with a mix of clouds and clear, but we will see the increasing chance of a late day shower and thunder shower. Still pretty widely scattered, not very likely, and our forecast high near 84 degrees as it gets kind of muggy. Saturday, Sunday, more numerous showers and thunder showers. Forecast highs upper 70s by Sunday afternoon. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
We're talking with Joe Ferretti of Hammer, Ferretti, and Schiavone. Joe, how do you hire a personal injury attorney?
Rob, we believe you should look for an attorney who has a good reputation and the results to match. Ask around. We have a history of success representing folks who live here. You'll be convinced that my law firm is the one to handle your personal injury claim. Call Hammer, Ferretti, and Schiavone at 264-8505 for a free review of your case. Or contact us online at hfslawyers.com. At Hammer, Ferretti, and Schiavone, reputation and results matter.
As Hasanovich goes to second with a 2 RBI double, and Martinsburg is on the board first.
This is West Virginia State Delegate and former Little League All-Star Jason Barrett. I can still remember those summer days, the fun of playing baseball, building friendships, and learning lessons that are still with me today as I serve the people of the 61st District. I'm proud to support this year's All-Stars and wish the best to each team.
61st District Delegate Jason Barrett. Trusted leadership, real solutions.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport.
We welcome you in to Walsh University. We are in North Canton, Ohio. Turning out to be a beautiful day here in Cleveland, Mississippi. We had rain over. We welcome you back to Hilton Head High School in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Back once again here at Doubleday Field in Cooperstown, New York.
Local sports coverage with Talk Radio WRNR's Matt Miller. There when you can't be. Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by the Berkeley County Health Department. Berkeley County Health Department is located at 122 Waverly Court in Martinsburg, offering public, clinical, and environmental services and, when appropriate, flu shots. Didn't you get your flu shot there?
I did get my flu shot there last year, and I would highly recommend to everyone listening that when that time comes around again, that's just a great place to go get it done. They know what they're doing.
Get your flu shot.
Yep, and it's free.
Matt Crawford is our producer this week. Sherry Dieter Davis is out until Monday. Our intern is Siobhan Hunter, and she'll be with us most days through the summer, and she's handling our social media. So you'll find tweets, EPT_Rob and Dave is how you follow us on Twitter, our Facebook page. She's maintaining that for us, too, taking care of photos and whatever for our guests who are in studio. And
Siobhan, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I would like to be a social media manager, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
That's what her major is.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
All right, so this is very appropriate. I was just thinking she wanted to be an intern here because she loved Rob and Dave.
That too.
Well,
it can be that too.
Who wouldn't fall under that category or description? By the way, let's see. I set this aside. Just have to make sure I didn't set it so far aside that I don't actually have it. Hold on. All right. Here it is. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Cheryl Lynn Hess-Saliba and Larry D. Kump have proudly announced their upcoming wedding.
Well, very nice.
Did you know that?
No, congratulations.
August of this summer, they will plan a private ceremony at the Hedgesville, West Virginia Ward Congregation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Spring Mills.
Very nice.
In lieu of wedding gifts, well-wishers instead are asked to make election contributions to Friends of Larry D. Kump. How convenient.
There you go. That's a first in all the political campaigns I've ever been involved in. For the last 40 years, I've never heard of a wedding also being a fundraiser. That's the first time ever.
It's
a great idea. I'm not putting it down.
You're not implying that this wedding is a fundraiser. You're just saying.
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, he said if you want to give a gift, give to the Larry Kump for Delegate campaign. So that tells me it's a fundraiser.
That's pretty cool that he's getting married.
Nothing wrong. By the way, Vice President Mike Pence's birthday is today.
59, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Vice President Pence.
When I ran his first campaign for Congress, I was about 7 or 8 years older than him. And I remember it because it was the first time that I had ever done a campaign for someone younger than me. And it just told me that I was now starting to turn. I was about 35 at the time. And but I had never run a campaign for someone younger than I was. And interestingly enough, and I may have shared this with you before, but Mike Pence still loves to tell this story, that of the 5 or so campaign teams, consultants that he interviewed, I was not his first choice, but I was the first choice of his mother and father. And since he was only about 27, 28 or so at the time, I guess he was still in that age where he listened to his parents. I mean, at some point you get over that, right? But his mom and dad wanted me to do the campaign, and that's the reason I got the job.
So what you're telling me, Dave, if I have this correct, is that people don't like you, but their parents do.
I think that's always been the case. I'm kind of an Eddie Haskell type, Remember that?
That's not a good thing to say about yourself.
Yeah, it would be, hello, Mr. Mario. Hello, Mrs. Mario.
That's a fine dress you're wearing today, Mrs. Cleaver.
Exact. Parents always loved me.
I don't think they loved Eddie Haskell.
I had no friends, but the parents always invited me for dinner.
Mrs. Cleaver did not love Eddie Haskell. She knew exactly what Eddie Haskell was. To the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line we go, and it is there that we say good morning to Brian Dayton. He was the communications manager for the West Virginia Chamber. Brian, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Well, good morning, Rob and Dave. Appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. Do you even know who Eddie Haskell is, Brian?
It's ringing a bell, but I'll just leave it there.
Does that give you a clue?
Leave it to Beaver.
That does, yes.
Okay, there you
go.
go.
I was definitely enjoying the story there.
We'll call you Mr. Dayton. How's that?
Brian, Mr. Dayton, my wife has some other names, so whatever you prefer.
Brian, the Chamber has prepared a paper on public education in the state, and it's a voluminous report. You guys didn't spare any detail on this one. So there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot to cut through. But if you could, before we get into some of the details, summarize effectively what the paper states.
So just to kind of give take a step back for just one quick second. We began putting this paper together in early March, after the walkout from the teachers. A lot of our members just had questions, where do we rank compared to other states when it comes to total teacher compensation, which includes pay and benefits from both health care and retirement, and where do we compare on education results. So that is really why we started putting this paper together, and it took a good while to put it together, and we went through several revisions, with stakeholders that reviewed this. Just some of the highlights we took away that really caught our attention. For example, West Virginia is 14th in the nation in the amount we spend per pupil. That's almost $3,000 higher than the national average in per pupil spending. So that was something that really caught our attention right there. And, we think that's something to applaud, that West Virginia invests in education. But we also notice when it comes to what's commonly referred to as the NAEP scores from the National Assessment of Education Progress, that our education results in 4th and 8th grade math and reading continue to lag behind much of the nation. So those were a couple of the big highlights that we saw when we started putting this together.
Okay, when we've spoken in the past with leaders in the state in regards to education, and we've talked to Dale Lee from the West Virginia Education Association. He is the president. We've talked about the fact that funding in the state per pupil is among the highest in the nation, but the results are not. Dale has detailed ways in which that funding calculation is inaccurate. He says it includes many things that have nothing to do with the classroom. So when you hear that West Virginia funds its students as well as any state in the country, but the results aren't good, he disputes that. Do you have any insight on that?
Well, and that's the other reason we put this paper together, to get a conversation started about education funding. So the number, if you look at that per pupil spending, the dollar amount, which comes from the National Education Association, is $14,274 per pupil. But not all of that reaches the classroom. The number we frequently hear that actually reaches into the classroom is between $3,800 and $4,000. So that's part of the reason we're pointing this statistic out. We believe it's worthwhile to have a conversation. How much goes to the classroom? How much goes to transportation funding? How much goes towards administration, and so on? We believe that is a conversation we need to have in this state, how we're spending those dollars.
How would those net dollars as to what actually reaches the classroom then rank among the 50 states? Do we know if we scaled it down to from 14,000 down to 4,000 or whatever the number you ultimately said was that reaches the classroom? How would that rate?
And that is actually something we're still researching. The statistics that you can find from the National Education Association put that number together as a total amount. But really, to dive down and find out the classroom, you got to start looking in each state and how they fund their education, and start doing a state-by-state breakdown, which is something that we are engaged in.
Do we know?
At the moment, I don't have that answer.
Do we know why we are falling down in that 4th through 8th grade range?
Well, so let's talk about that 4th and 8th grade range for a second. Just to point out, this paper highlights going back to 2011, and this is an every 2-year test. We have seen some improvement in all 4 of those scores from 2011 until 2017. But we do continue to still fall behind much of the nation. And that's where we believe it's worthwhile to have a conversation. Like I said, we are high in the spending level, but how are we spending those dollars, and how do we tackle education in this state? And that's really what the purpose of this paper is to start that conversation. It's going to probably take people getting out of their comfort zones, and stepping out and just having an honest conversation. Because the most important thing is that we make sure that our students are well prepared for the future, well prepared for the workforce of tomorrow. The chamber members, first of all, they're in our communities. They have children in school. They're married to teachers. Several of them are the sons and daughters of teachers, so they have a deep care. But ultimately, they're also looking at today's students as people they're going to employ tomorrow. So they do have a deep care about education results and making sure that our students are well prepared for tomorrow.
Dave?
I'm wondering, Brian, a couple of questions sort of occurred to me. And first of all, this is an excellent report. It's 25 pages long. It's extensive. Why would the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce go through such lengths to output a report like this? And I think I heard you say it was largely a result of the teacher strike.
Well, that's what initially gave us the reason to start putting this paper together. During the teacher strike, we had our members that were contacting us with questions. Okay, they understand that the ranking is 49th in teacher pay. That is accurate. But they were saying, okay, where do we rank on some of these other metrics compared to other states? Cost of living comes into play in West Virginia. We have the 6th lowest cost of living according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So that is going to have an impact on how much teachers make. But they also wanted to know.
And that's another. Sorry to interrupt, but that's another.
No, sure.
Let me interpret that. That's another way of saying, okay, we may not pay our teachers as much, but in terms of what their dollar buys them, if you will, here on that lower teacher salary, it's a lot more equivalent with the higher teacher paid states. So it's unfair to compare us with New York that has a teacher average of $81,000 a year.
Correct. Well, and even if you do adjust it with cost of living, it's not like we jump into the top half. After the 5% pay raise takes effect next school year, even with that cost of living adjustment is only going to put West Virginia teachers at about 37th, 38th, depending on what some other states do, for average teacher pay. It bumps us up a little bit, but we want to make sure that we're clear. It doesn't bump us up into the top half.
Where was the chamber during the legislation a couple of months ago? Were you supportive as an organization of the 5% pay increase?
We believe that in order to go ahead and make sure that we are able to attract and retain the best quality teachers, we have to ensure that teacher salaries are competitive. And we have said that for a long time, that we need to be competitive. So we in no ways were opposed to a 5% increase. But, something else that I want to point out here for a quick second. West Virginia has a statewide minimum salary schedule. So that drives most of how much a teacher makes in West Virginia. Individual counties can implement an excess levy with voter approval, but the amount that they can implement is somewhat restricted by state law. So let's take, just in your area, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania. Those 3 states do not have a statewide minimum salary schedule. They allow their localities to determine local economic factors and essentially then set teacher salaries according to that. They, aren't mandating it at the state level. So what you end up finding, for example, is, let's take Virginia. Loudoun County, Virginia, the average teacher salary is $63,000. Allegheny County, which is down, close to Greenbrier County, West Virginia, the average teacher salary is $49,000. So that's just an example there. If other states have started to recognize, it may not be the best thing to do it at a statewide level because different regions of their state are impacted by different economic factors.
So one solution could be a change in how education is funded to allow localities such as ours that border Maryland and Virginia higher income counties. In order to compete, we should be allowed, I would think, to be able to pass a levy higher than what Charleston says we can in order to pay our teachers more, if the voters wanted to do that.
That would definitely be, and I think it would really take an overall examination across the state in order to do that because, yes, you guys in Berkeley County and Jefferson County, Morgan County, the cost of living there is going to be different than it is in central West Virginia. It's going to be different than it is in the northern panhandle or for southern West Virginia. So right now, West Virginia doesn't really have any mechanism to recognize local economic factors and how cost of living can change across the state.
How important, Brian, does the chamber, the West Virginia Chamber, consider quality education, a quality educational system, to be as it's tied to economic development?
It is one of, if not the most important factor for economic development. If you're trying to attract employers into a state, one of the things they are going to look at is the local education system. And from a multitude of perspectives, For example, they're going to be moving into that area themselves. They want to make sure that their children are going to have excellent opportunities. They're also going to be looking at it from the perspective of, can we hire qualified individuals to come to work for us? So education is absolutely key. It is an essential component of economic development.
I would imagine, too, that one of the things, and I'm not sure you addressed it in your report, I've read parts of this report, that when you're looking at how well students do at some of these tests at the 4th grade, 8th grade level, math and science and reading and other things, that one of the factors that plays into here, too, is that West Virginia ranks pretty low in terms of its, income, family income, and family education generally compared to the other states. In other words, there's a lot of students that are living in sort of an economic crisis in their homes, and they're not going to do as well, generally speaking, as higher income kids that might live in Maryland or Virginia and other states around us.
Well, absolutely. And
in other words, I don't want to blame this all on the teachers. I don't. I'm trying to stay away from, hey, we rank low in math and reading, so it's all the teachers' fault. So they don't need to get. They don't deserve that pay. You hear that out there. I just don't. I just hope we never go there as a sort of a belief system.
Well, and first of all, let me just address that head on. That would be a very incorrect belief system as far as we're concerned. We don't think that is any way remotely true. So, we really believe that we need to have an overall conversation about how we fund education, how we perform education in this state. One of the things that we say a lot is let teachers teach. We need to look at ways of, are we doing things in a bureaucratic system that other states aren't doing? Are we putting restrictions that make it more difficult for teachers to adapt to the local situations that their students live in? So absolutely, if you were going to go ahead and say that our education results, are strictly due to the teachers, I would say that's not correct at all. So we certainly would dispute that if someone tried to make that claim. But we do believe that we need to examine our overall education system. I'm not meaning just the teachers, but the overall system in West Virginia.
Brian Dayton is the communications manager for the West Virginia Chamber, appearing courtesy of the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line. Brian, what was the most surprising thing your study came up with in this latest report?
One of the things, and this is something that we were aware until we really started to dive down into it. Just one aspect of funding that really caught our attention. West Virginia's teacher retirement system, I know in neighboring Kentucky this year, their teacher strike was largely due to their retirement system. West Virginia actually has a very stable and increasingly well-funded retirement system. 15 years ago, our teacher's retirement system was a dangerously low 19% funded. Today, it is approximately 72% funded, and that has taken a huge commitment by the state, by the legislature, to fund that. But just to kind of give an idea how much that costs, this year alone, West Virginia is going to invest $426 million into that system, $73 million to the retirement system itself, and $353 million to the unfunded liability. So, that's just an eye-opening number.
That's 10% of the budget.
Yeah, 10% of the budget. And when you dive down even farther, out of the general revenue budget, approximately $1.8 billion goes to education, $426 million. So we're talking over 20% into that one area. But that was it's an eye-opening number. But we believe that it's important just to kind of go ahead and help people start to understand overall how we invest in education in this state.
Ultimately, what would you like to see happen as a result of this study?
What we want to see happen is a robust conversation, getting the public involved, getting all stakeholders, the legislature, the executive department, teachers, and the general public, parents. We want to have a robust conversation and start to go ahead and get people talking and exchanging ideas, because we have to make sure that the education system we have is serving our students and our children well. We need to make sure that they are well prepared for the workforce of tomorrow and that they are given the tools to succeed. So that's what we hope this paper helps jumpstart.
Ultimately, could we conclude that West Virginia's education system would be better served by at least starting the process of decentralization?
Yeah, I think that would be something that's definitely worth taking a look at. And here's just something I want to point out real quick. An education audit was performed in 2012. And during that audit, there's something that they wrote in the paper actually said, the independent report concluded that West Virginia has one of the most highly regulated systems in the country, if not the most, with many details of school operations spelled out in code. That is a direct quote from that education audit, and that was 6 years ago. And since that time, we have really seen no major reforms to the governance of public education.
Well, that suggests to me then, Brian, that if nothing's changed, the new Republican majority that's been there for 2 sessions now has aggressively, addressed so many different things. Are you urging them now to maybe start looking at education reform in a way that is perhaps more aggressive than they have so far?
I think the new majority has tackled a lot of very important tasks in West Virginia, and they've made some very important changes. And I think what they've done is they've tackled things that were of immediate concern. And going forward, absolutely, education is one of the things that's going to take a while. It's going to be difficult. There are going to be a lot of hard decisions, but absolutely.
How, when you're talking, just staying on the political part of this just for a second, how challenging is it as a statewide organization to address a problem like education when you, in many cases, you don't have so much partisan differences, you have geographic differences?
Well, that absolutely plays into things. And that's, one of the reasons I think when you bring up centralization, it's important to talk about. West Virginia is a very diverse state. We have a lot of regions with a lot of local economic factors coming into play, but ultimately people who are elected are going to serve the regions from which they come. But I think we need to start getting ourselves into a mentality that we need to recognize that the Eastern Panhandle is going to be different from Central West Virginia. North Central West Virginia is going to be different from Southern West Virginia, and so on. So it is a challenge, but it's one worth addressing.
Brian, thanks so much for your time this morning. Where can our listeners access that report?
Absolutely. You can visit our website at wvchamber.com. We have this paper posted there for the public to download, and you can download it, print it off, or you can read it online.
All right, Brian Dayton, thanks so much for your time, Communications Manager of the West Virginia Chamber. I'm sending you out with the Leave It to Beaver theme song, Brian.
Oh, thanks. Rob, Dave, I certainly appreciate it.
Nicely done. Thank you.
9:30, Brian Dayton, courtesy of the WV Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line. Erich Zimny from the Charlestown Racetrack will join us coming up next. We could have a Triple Crown winner by the end of the weekend, Dave. Justify.
That's exciting.
Chance to win at the Belmont. Take it all. It's 9:30.
Okay, house or condo?
Definitely a house.
3 bedrooms or 4?
3.
Traditional or contemporary?
Contemporary.
So on the golf course or next to the lake?
Both?
Both.
Choosing the perfect house involves some tough choices. Where to find it? That choice is easy. Homesandland.com. There are thousands of listings from the area's top realtors. With a few clicks, you can search by bedrooms, by price, and choose just the features you want. And in Homes and Land magazine, you'll find full-color photos and detailed property descriptions. It's the perfect way to find your next home. For a free copy, call 1-800-277-7800 or visit homesandland.com. Homes and Land, connecting home buyers and sellers for over 30 years.
Talk to your realtor today about Homes and Land of the Eastern Panhandle or phone 304-579-8510. It's the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg. Stop in now for great deals on a great line of Jeep products. Get $1,000 cash back on a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with financing at 0% for 60 months. How about a new 2019 Cherokee Latitude 4x4, only $219 a month, or a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK for only $296 a month. Get bonus cash cash up to $6,000 off a 2018 Renegade, plus $500 trade. Stop by and test drive a Chrysler Pacifica and get free movie passes. It's all at the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on Kelly Island Road, or online at millerschryslerjeep.com. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details.
WVU Medicine welcomes Dr. Sarika Bagri to the staff at WVU Medicine Primary Care Inwood. Dr. Bagri is board certified in internal medicine and is now accepting new patients at Primary Care Inwood, conveniently located at 5047 Gerrardstown Road, Suite 2B in the Inwood Medical Building. For more information or to schedule an appointment with Dr. Bagri, call WVU Medicine Primary Care Inwood at 304-229-6343. 304-229-6343.
Somewhere, I know I'll find you somehow, and somehow I'll return again to you.
Welcome back to our program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations, Robert Fields and Sons, family-owned and full service, proudly serving our area since 1880. Davey, are you a roller coaster fan?
Well, okay. When I was younger, I think I liked them. I haven't been on one in a very long time. My thing with roller coasters was I would be frightened of them, looking at them and thinking about it. But once I got on them and did it,
you're okay.
So for me, the hard part was getting in line and taking that first step. That's and I think when they started going upside down and loop to loop, doing all those things that they do now. So I love the old-fashioned wooden roller coasters that you'd find. I
You'd
love
like
that.
Kennywood Park then, man.
Yeah, and I loved. I grew up 20 minutes from Disneyland, and so I loved going to the Matterhorn and all of that. But some of the newer ones, they scare me a little bit.
Savon, how about you? Roller coaster fan? You like to hit the thrill rides when you go to the amusement parks?
I love roller coasters. They're my favorite.
Hands down. You can tell she's young, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pete Trabucco is an amusement park expert and a top travel specialist. He's with us right now on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line. Pete, good morning to you. How are you today?
I am good. How are you today?
Excellent. Thanks so much for being our guest. We've had you on before. You're a wonderful guest, and I heard you on with Jim Bohannon about a week ago. Or so on the America in the Morning program that we air between 5 and 6 a.m. So great to have you with us. I know you've been on Fox, CNN, many other channels as well. So let's get to it, sir. We want to talk to you about amusement park safety, ride safety, and also some of the great coasters we might want to check out this summer around the country. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, not a problem. Well, first of all, it's very, very safe. As you probably already know, there was an incident at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson just last Sunday with regards to the Sky Screamer, which is kind of like a lift chair that goes up 242 feet and flies you around at about 40 miles an hour. But the cool part about this is that rides are extremely safe. The actual system worked properly, and the riders were down in 15 minutes with no issues, no problems, no injuries. The ride actually shut off itself. Statistics show, National Consumer Products Safety Commission come up with statistics, and out of about almost 150 million people that ride, they get about maybe 6,000 to 7,000 injuries that go to the hospital, minor injuries. And out of the 140 million people that are riding, 150 million people that are riding, you've got about a 1 in 250 million chance of being in a fatality. So the rides are extremely safe. They are probably one of the safest things. It would be compared to the aviation industry with the amount of people that actually visit an amusement park. And the rides are quite safe. The technology is there too, especially on these newer rides, which definitely makes a difference.
These are the ones that scare David. These newer rides.
Yeah, but I've been on them at various times. I mean, I think my roller coaster riding was most intense during when I was raising the kids. They're all raised now, and so I don't go on my own anymore. But when they were growing up, this would have been mostly in the 90s. when they were, teens, preteens, and teens in that age. If they went on one, I went on it with them. So.
Pete, what's the most thrilling ride in America right now?
Well, there's some really great rides out there. I would say that, obviously, in my book, I cover many of them, but the real good rides, the anticipation rides, the rides that are really throwing people, into activity, especially if you're a roller coaster fanatic, is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This is a crazy roller coaster. Basically, it's pretty tall, very fast. It's the old wooden roller coaster, which was called the Beast, which now they made into a steel coaster. The big fad now is having these rides where they're hybrids. They actually are wood roller coasters on steel track, so that they can go a little bit faster and do a lot of different things. But my favorite overall ride, you can also find at Six Flags Great Adventure, ride called Kinder Ka, which is 450 feet high and shoots you from 0 to 128 miles an hour in about 3.5 seconds. So it's a really fast ride, one of the greatest rides I think out there, and one of the second fastest and the first tallest in the world at this point.
I think Elon Musk would call that ludicrous speed, wouldn't he, Pete?
Absolutely, but there's one faster in Abu Dhabi called in Ferrari Land called Formula Rossa. Now that one goes from 0 to 150 miles an hour in about 3 seconds. So we keep going faster, we keep going higher. There's a new polar coaster coming to Florida and Orlando. That's going to be 540 feet for next year. So, as long as the riders stay conscious, it's a good ride. So hopefully that'll be the case in that one as well.
See, there is no way I would get on that roller
That's
coaster.
a 54-story office tower, 540 feet.
Yeah, that is. And
54-story
it's going to be a doozy also.
The book, by the way, is called A Personal Guide to the Best Thrill Rides and Amusement and Water Parks. And Pete has made it his mission to make sure you're aware of all of those. And by the way, Pete, you have a little political background, too, serving as chief of staff for the New Jersey State Assembly from 89 to 95.
Yeah, that's true. I got involved. My claim to fame isn't the 2 books I've written or, being a pilot or anything like that. The thing that really intrigued me the most was I got involved with the politics, and, I'm not going to tell you what party because I tried to stay middle of the road as a speechwriter and everything. But those defibrillators that you see, those automated external defibrillators, they save about maybe 100 million lives, not 100 million, but about 100 million lives over a 5-year plan from people who suffer from cardiac arrest. I was involved with getting that bill passed in New York and New Jersey, and then use that similar bill to have a layperson use a defibrillator. It was signed in around 2000. That was my claim to fame, was that I helped promote it and helped get the major companies, the Fortune 5s, to actually try it. So now that everyone has these defibrillators, and they're now standard of care all over the country, and not just over the country, but all over the world. So, I love doing it. I try to stay out of the politics, but if it's to help people, obviously I go to bat and try to help out as much as I possibly can.
So, Pete, did you work with guys like Chuck Italian, Bob Franks, and Don Seco?
Oh, yeah, we actually did in New Jersey. In fact, the biggest problem we had was not with the assemblymen or the state senators or the congressmen or the full senators. It was really groups that just didn't want to see a person get, have a liability issue, which is, of course, if you're using this unit and God forbid something happens, which can only be good, by the way, with a defibrillator, because the person's clinically dead in SCA or sudden cardiac arrest. The biggest problems we had were with trial lawyers who basically thought it was taking away the rights of an individual to live or die, and that was one of the biggest issues we had to get these bills through, both the Assembly, the State Senate, and then later on through Congress.
The reason that I ask is during those same years that you laid out, and beyond that too, I was the Republican campaign consultant for the state party and the state assembly during all those years. So there's a little connection that we have. Yeah,
well, it's a lot of fun. I was actually involved with the Christy Whitman campaign, which was the first woman a governor of New Jersey.
Sure.
And from then on, I basically got involved as a chief of staff.
Yeah, she had quite the national profile for a while.
Yes, she did.
At one point, they were grooming her to to be on a ticket for the presidential ticket,
Right.
and that sort of went south. But she was a very intelligent person. She still is, and it was great to be on her staff.
Well, Pete, you're clearly a thrill seeker, a licensed private pilot. You've written several articles, too, for Atlantic Flyer Magazine and Flight USA. So tell me now, other than the coasters we've talked about, in regards to water parks, where would be the greatest water park thrill ride in the country right now?
Well, there's a bunch of water parks out there that are just absolutely amazing. One of my favorites, obviously, when you're talking about water parks, you're talking about the people that first started to do the water parks was, of course, was Disney. And you've got a whole bunch of stuff that's really, really good. And I'm actually trying to give you the list that I have in my book, which basically we'll go through that real quick here.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's see. And this never really happens, but for some reason I've actually closed down a little bit here
That's all right.
on the road. Disney's, of course, Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios is a great place to go. You've got Schlitterbahn, which is a fantastic water park, one of the best in the world. That can be found in Texas. That's another good one there. And there's many out there, but at this point, I'm not able to get to where I need to go, so I apologize for that.
That's okay. Pete, the great independent parks that are still out there, like I mentioned Kennywood Park earlier, which is an independent park in Pittsburgh I grew up going to and has just a wonderful family atmosphere as well. Are there still many of those operating out there?
Yes, there are. In fact, Kennywood is one of my favorites. You've got Steel Phantom there. The Racer's still there.
Oh, yeah.
One of the oldest rides out there. Jackrabbit, which has a double dip in the middle of it, is actually great.
Oh, yeah.
Lake Compounce in Bristol is also a fantastic place to go. It's one of the oldest amusement parks, and it's one of my favorite, for what you're talking about there. Yeah, they're out there. A lot of them are being bought out by either the Six Flags, the Cedar Fair, the Disney World, the Universal Studios programs. But you'll find that those rides, like Dollywood, for example, is a single type of operation. You'll find that the culture and the things that made them so special, like Kennywood, are still there and are things that continually impress people. The pricing is less than what you'll find at bigger parks, but you'll have the culture, you'll have a lot more fun, and the people are nice. So they're not going away, but at the same time, it's not something that is increasing. It's really decreasing because of the competitive nature of roller coasters and thrill rides.
Pete, thanks so much for your time this morning. Always great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Pete Trabucco, author of A Personal Guide to the Best Thrill Rides and Amusement Water Parks as we get to the summer season here. It's just fun stuff to know and great stuff to go ride and have a good time with. It's 9:45. Back with Erich Zimny from the Charlestown races next.
$100
Possibilities are all around us. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action in communities all around the world. Together, we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved at Rotary.org.
As Hasanovich goes to second with a 2 RBI double, and Martinsburg is on the board first.
This is West Virginia State Delegate and former Little League All-Star Jason Barrett. I can still remember those summer days, the fun of playing baseball, building friendships, and learning lessons that are still with me today as I serve the people of the 61st District. I'm proud to support this year's All-Stars and wish the best to each team.
61st District Delegate Jason Barrett. Trusted leadership, real solutions.
Simply free e-checking from City National Bank. Perfect if you want basic checking with no monthly service fees or balance requirements. Stop by any of our 7 Eastern Panhandle locations or visit us online at bankatcity.com. City National Bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave. In our final segment today, the Big Friday show tomorrow, Joe Ferretti will be in for Mike Carl. Delegate Jason Barrett will be here as well. Rob here along with Dave and our intern Savant Hunter, who loves coasters. Dave, who's afraid of them now, if I can summarize that correctly.
Yeah, I'm apprehensive. I just haven't gotten on one in a long time. But, I mean, as Pete said, they're building these things to a level that I know that I would not go on it. It would just be one of those things that I just would be afraid to do.
54 stories high for the drop for a coaster now?
And how fast is it going to go in 3 seconds?
150 miles an hour.
That's just outrageous.
In 3 seconds.
And he said if you remain conscious, you'll have a good time.
And you're not.
That's not like, to me, that's not very inviting. I'm sorry. That's just not terribly inviting. I'm not that much of a thrill seeker.
You definitely lose your glasses on that ride.
I'm sure, yeah.
And you can't have that happen again.
No.
Let's see.
I've suffered all week long.
The WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line is where we find Erich Zimny from the Charlestown Racetrack. Good morning, EZ. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, guys. How are you?
This is the first time I've had you on in 3 years when you have been shuttling back and forth from Triple Crown races to Stanley Cup finals games.
Yeah, I know. It's I could tell with about 10, 12, 15 games left in the regular season. That was not going to be my lifestyle this spring, unfortunately. But yeah, I just ran out of gas. That's a pretty good segue, though, to what we'll talk about next, because I think there's some parallels here between Justify and the Penguins.
You think that Justify was running out of gas at the end of the Preakness, and that'll carry over to the Belmont?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily, but what they're asking the horse to do is go from an unraced horse to the second undefeated Triple Crown winner in the history of the sport in 110 days, which is... that's a Herculean accomplishment if he can pull it off. What he's done already is unprecedented. But there's situational things in sports. The more you go from analyzing a season to a series to an individual game, the situational elements pop up that render horses or athletes or teams more or less likely to fire out a peak effort. The Penguins, you go through the grueling mental and physical grind of winning 2 cups, and when the lemon is squeezed almost dry, and you're looking across at a really talented team who would be tough anyway. I mean, you're gonna lose, and there's been a lot of racing packed into a pretty short time with Justify right now, and I have a hard time believing he's gonna fire an A+ effort. Is an A good enough to win? Maybe, but I don't know. It's a tough call.
Justify has drawn post position number 1, is going off as 4-5 odds. And apparently post 1 at the Belmont has produced the most champions of any post position, but nobody's won along the rail since 2003, from what I read.
Yeah, that might be true. I mean, going 1.5 miles on a track, it's a really big track. I mean, it's when you look at it, I mean, it's 1.5 miles in circumference. So that's 2 times what we have here in terms of circumference. And post position tends to not matter all that much in this race. I mean, there's not 20 horses like there is in the Derby. So being stuck on the rail, you're not going to have 19 other horses kind of crushing over onto you, crowding you. So yeah, the 1 hole, I don't think it makes a big difference for him.
How about some of those long shots? Anyone look good to you?
Well, he's not going to be a long shot, but I think I'm going to side with Hofberg on Saturday. He looks like he actually look. If Justify runs his A+ race, he's going to win. He is the best horse in the field, but the gap in talent between Hofberg and Justify really is not, in my eyes, a huge gap. And if Justify stubs his toe, that's the horse who I think can come and pick up the pieces and win the race.
In the 4-post position at 9-2 odds, and we got a couple of horses in at 8-1 as well, Erich, who are considered to be among the favorites here.
Yeah, Bravazzo ran very well in the Preakness, ran second, only lost a half length to Justify. And a horse, Vino Rosso, who last ran the Derby as well, and he had a really rough trip in the Derby. Came back with like a swollen eye, had just like a lot of mud in it. He really took the worst of it. Vino Rosso wouldn't surprise me. I'm less bullish on Bravazzo. But Vino Rosso, he can certainly win the race.
There's a horse named after the New England Patriots tight end, Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, does he own it? Does it own it? Just get named after him?
He doesn't own it. He will be there on on Saturday. So as a Steelers fan, I'm tempted to, maybe, I don't know, try to barrel roll his knees or something. You don't get torched again like we did last season.
We'll support you on that.
I think a lot of people outside of Boston will support him. But yeah, he's making his first start in the United States. He hasn't run in 2.5 months, never on turf. Never on dirt, and he would be a major, major shock.
Gronkowski going off in the 6th position at 12-1. The other long shot, Restoring Hope, goes at 30-1 in the 5th position. Does Restoring Hope have any shot of restoring hope?
He's got a minor shot. I mean, I would see him as a player for, the trifectas and superfectas. Bob Baffert trades Restoring Hope in addition to Justify, and I don't know, it'd be something to explain to the owners of Justify if Bob Baffert came in and won the race with a different horse. I could see him getting a piece of this, but winning the race, it's pretty unlikely.
I understand that what we just saw at the Preakness may be the final, or at least the penultimate race that the Preakness hosts at Pimlico there for the Triple Crown. They may move it to Laurel.
They've been talking about that for a while. Pimlico, if you've been there, and, it's not the best racetrack as far as its aesthetics, and it's really old, and I don't say falling down, but it doesn't have a lot of the amenities that modern tracks have. It just means so much to the city of Baltimore, though, as far as tourism goes, that I have a hard time believing they'll be moving it to Laurel anytime soon. But, Pimlico certainly does need some work if it wants to keep up with modern venues.
I remember, because my son has paid so many visits to Sinai Hospital, which is basically a stone's throw from Pimlico. I remember the first time I drove by that track after watching that race on television all those years and driving by the track thinking, this is where they hold a Triple Crown race? It's a dump. I mean, I hate to be mean about the track, but...
Why don't we just say it's had its finer days?
Yeah, I mean, it's
dump is a harsh word.
10 months out of the year, the parking lot's grown over with weeds, and they basically use it as a commuter parking lot, I think.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, as the proverbial building of a church for Easter Sunday, they only race there now. I don't know if it's 10 days a year. And, no, I think dump's a good word.
I've got verification on the dump, Dave.
There you go.
We're good there.
And a drunk fest. At least it used to be.
It is a bit rowdy in the infield, yeah. Erich, how do you think, and we're talking with Erich Zimny from the Charlestown races, about the opportunity Justify has this weekend to win Triple Crown, duplicating the feat done by American Pharoah a couple of years ago, but previously not done since, 1979, was it?
Firm 78.
78, yeah, right after Seattle Slew in 77, then Secretariat in 73. What kind of a race do you think Justify will run from a strategic standpoint?
Well, the one thing that does give me, two things that give me some hope with Justify, pause to not pick him on top are his trainer, who's one of the best, if not the best, dirt trainer of all time right now, and two is that his running style of he's the kind of horse who's going to get out there and he's like a powerful galloper, and he can run basically the same clip around the track the whole time, I feel like, and that's the running style that kind of works best in this race. People think, a mile and a half, it's the longest race, and so you're going to favor a closer, a horse who comes from out of it kind of at the last minute. But really what a closer is in a horse race is a horse who has a 3/8 of a mile burst of energy, and he's able to just mow the other horses down. Drawing the analogy to a human marathon, having that quick burst of speed like that really doesn't pay many dividends in a marathon. You kind of want to run off splits that are very comparable to each other over the course of the race. So I think you might see him go to the lead and try to gallop him along at a reasonable rate and see if he can hold off the horses from behind.
As time goes by, and the first Belmont Stakes I ever saw, obviously, I'm born in 63, so I guess I'm about 10 years old, and you see Secretariat coming down the home stretch at the Belmont, and everything since has compared to that race to me. Just how much of a freak was Secretariat when you think back of that race?
Pretty crazy. I think, if I remember right, he ran every quarter-mile split in the Belmont faster than the previous quarter mile, so he was accelerating as the race went on, which you don't often see at all in dirt races. I mean, his track record going a mile and a half at Belmont still stands, and I would venture to guess it's not going to be broken in our lifetimes. And It's probably the most iconic moment in the history of the game.
So give me your 1, 2, 3. I'll put you on the spot here for the race.
We'll go Hofberg 1, Vino Rosso 2, Justified 3.
So no Triple Crown.
I side with no. If he wins, I'll tip my cap to him. It's, again, going from unraced to an undefeated Triple Crown winner in 110 days. That's tough to do.
Erich, thanks for your time this morning, man.
Thanks, guys.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
9:57, Erich Zimny, courtesy of the WV Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line. You heard it here. No Triple Crown winner, Dave.
Yeah, the Post has a few other horses they think are going to show up, different than Erich's opinion, but, that's why they call it betting.
Do they think Justified will win?
They do not, actually. So they make that case. They have Hofberg up there. They have Bravazzo showing up as a possibility, too.
9:58.
Kids, what's the rule about running in the house?
Always run hard out of the box.
That's not what I said.
She's running third. Here comes the play at the plate. Uh-oh.
Let's clean that up before Mom gets home.
Exciting baseball action and quality family time? There's a place for that. Nationals Park. On Friday, June 8th, the Nationals take on the Giants. The first 25,000 fans of the park will take home a Ryan Zimmerman bobblehead, presented by Delta Airlines. Visit Nationals.com to get your tickets today.
Are you looking for a full-service web design company right here in the Eastern Panhandle? Then look no further than Pro Design LLC, specializing in web design and development, web hosting, and application development. Pro Design is a locally owned company serving local clients since 1997 with a reputation of quality, creativity, and personal touch. Let Pro Design build or redesign your dream website. Find them online at professionaldesign.com or phone 304-676-9940.
Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and David. Oh yeah, they went there. On Talk Radio WRNR, 106.5 FM and 740 AM, and Comcast Cable Channel 10.
Well, that'll do it for today's program. Special thanks to all of our guests and to our wonderful sponsors and our producer, Matt Crawford, filling in for the wonderful Sherry Dieter Davis, and our intern, Savon Hunter, who handled all of our social media during the course of the show today. Thank you, Savon. No comment? No comment. All right.
She's shy. I don't think she's shy.
For a show choir person.
I don't think she's shy.
Maybe a little bit.
It's just very, very nice to have you, Savon.
Say good. You can say it. Wasn't that one hard?
It wasn't that hard. Just to push the right button.
It's 10 o'clock. The Glenn Beck Show is next. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg. Have a great day. Talk to you again in 22 short hours.
CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. A last-minute get-together at the White House ahead of next week's meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Correspondent Bill Rakoff.
President Trump will welcome Prime Minister Shinzo Abe just days ahead of the U.S. summit with North Korea and Singapore. And you can expect that topic to dominate today's discussion. Japan, of course, has a big stake in the future of the region. Abe will likely want assurances from Mr. Trump that any deal struck with Kim Jong-un won't just protect U.S. interests, but will also be a benefit to Japan as well.
Rudy Giuliani's comment raised eyebrows.